Hello, and welcome to today's town hall here at Discovery World. I'm Brian Wunar, and I'm the president and CEO of Discovery World. And I want to thank you for joining us today to learn more about all of the different things that we do here to support our educational mission. Now, one of the groups that's really important is our volunteers. And today we're going to be learning about all the difference that they make here for all of our guests at Discovery World. I'm going to be joined today by four of our incredible volunteers who all have a little bit of a different experience and they play a different role. And we thought it would be a great chance to take a peek behind the scenes and get a sense of all of the ways that volunteers support our organization. So, first up, I'd like to introduce our first volunteer, Steve.
Hey, Brian.
Welcome.
Thanks.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a retired guy a few years ago, and right now I like to travel around the world, and I like to volunteer. And so I'm involved with AFS and my church, and I've got lots of hobbies like keeping honeybees. And in my basement, I have a model railroad.
Okay, so I'm guessing that might tell us a little bit about the area that you volunteer in here at Discovery World.
Yeah, I got a letter from Walthers, which is a partner here of the museum, and Walther said, "Hey, we're looking for volunteers to help with a new train set at the museum." And so I answered the call and started talking to Eric from your staff and learned a little bit about what they needed. And um, the layout is here at the museum, and it's fabulous. And most of the time, I take care of it, um, maintaining it.
Okay.
Sometimes, a lot of times, I get to talk with guests, which is a lot of fun. But sometimes I'm here just by myself cleaning engines and fixing track and things like that.
All right. So in a typical day, it sounds like sometimes you interact with the guests who are here. Sometimes you're really doing the things that happen when no one's here to make
Right.
sure things work on a daily basis,
Right.
right?
Sometimes I come in, it's dark in here, and Eric turns the lights on for me, and I'll be underneath the layout fixing wires or cleaning engines and doing things like that. But I do enjoy coming down when the guests are here, and mom and dad pick up their child up higher so that they can see the train layout. And I like to tell the kids to see if they can find the moose
Okay.
or the campfire or things like that. And it's a great experience for me because I get to interact with the little kids that like to watch the trains go around. I let them honk the horn, and then but I also get to interact with some of the adults who ask questions about the buildings on the layout. You know, why is that here and where did that come from? And things like that. So it's just a lot of fun to kind of tease the kids and tease the adults and watch them eyes wide as the trains go by.
Yeah. So it sounds like every day is a little bit different,
It
right?
is. Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, what's one of your favorite things to do while you are here volunteering? What's one of the best parts for you?
So when something's not working right, and then I get to come down and make it work right,
Okay.
that feels good. Those are the days when it's just me. And when there's kids here, and they got little junior up on their shoulders, and they watch the train go by, and I let them push the button to honk the horn, and their face just lights up. And I like it's just fun to see the wonder and just explaining. Some of the adults ask, "How does it work?" And that's I get to explain that. So I just like teaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
fun.
would you encourage others to think about volunteering here at Discovery World?
Oh yeah, at Discovery World, I just learned about new things today, just talking with other volunteers that I didn't even know existed. And the train is fun to volunteer. It's super easy. The computer mostly runs it. You just have to talk to the kids and talk to the adults. So volunteering here is great fun.
All right. Well, thank you for all that you
Yeah,
do. We couldn't do it without you.
my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
So we heard a little bit about some of the kinds of things that maybe you would do if you were working with our train set. Next, we're going to meet Julie, another volunteer. So come on over, Julie. Join me.
Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing really
Good
well.
to see you.
Good to see you. And I know you've been volunteering with Discovery World for quite some time, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's about 2004.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. And what kinds of things do you do when you're volunteering here at Discovery World?
I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. I love doing woodworking. I love doing electronics. Do a little bit of computer programming. And it's always a challenge when I come here because I'm often learning new skills or putting old skills to work.
Right. And it sounds like you said that you started back in 2004.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about maybe a project that you worked on from back then that
Well,
got you started?
I was asked if I wanted to help build a full-scale replica of a schooner. I was like, what? Sure, okay, why not? So I learned boat building skills. Maybe if I have to build a Noah's Ark in the future, I could probably do
You're
that.
ready for it. Yep.
And it was really a fun experience. It was really good learning experience as well. And when that project was completed just before our grand opening of the new building, I was sitting on the deck and I actually started crying because I realized we built this beautiful, incredible thing that was suspended in the building, and I didn't want to leave this place. And part of it was being able to see kids and how they interact with things. And when I see that light bulb go off in the kids' heads, it brings joy to me. And I think education is so important, but education in schools to me is not as fun as when you can interact, touch, see, feel, and do things. And I think you learn better that way.
Yeah. And that's what we do here at Discovery World every day. Right?
Exactly.
And that project, the challenge, it's still one of the centerpiece experiences
It's
that you can come every day.
falling apart.
Yeah, it's still there, and it's what I think for a lot of our young children who come here, it's one of their favorite things to do. So you not only made your mark at that point in time, but you made sure that it's part of what everyone who comes here gets to experience. Thank you for all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, again, we appreciate all that you do and all of our volunteers. So thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Great. So, again, all of our volunteers play many different kinds of roles. Some are behind the scenes helping to construct and repair and maintain things. Some are in front of the house and they're part of the interactions with our guests. I would like to introduce our next volunteer, which is Marty.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, Marty. Thanks for joining me today.
Yes.
All right. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a semi-retired. I work part-time on a consulting firm that works in higher education. I'm an economist by training. Don't do much with that these days, but I still have always worked in higher education with 30 years of experience from college teaching to higher ed administration.
So it sounds like education's been a theme throughout your career.
It certainly has.
And is it a part of what you get to do while you're here at Discovery World?
It's part of what attracted me to the volunteering that I do at Discovery World. I get to work with guests. Pretty much it's a forward-facing guest occupation of what I'm doing. And I'm letting them discover and also getting them to teach them about very simple robots and the concepts of robots.
Well, do you want to show our guests today a little bit
Let
about
me show
robots?
you our simple robots. These are our little cubelets. And you'll notice that if I take this, that I get my robot to move. And if we had a little bit more light, we'll switch our sensor because we don't have enough light. Okay, we'll just play with this guy. And so you'll notice that every robot is made up of three elements: a sensor, actions, in this case wheels, and a power supply. And we like to say a little bit of coding that tells the action what to do when it detects things from my distance sensor. And so one of my favorite things about working with Discovery World and working with youngsters is to point out to them that they're not aware that they have robots in their house. And that if you have a night light that goes on automatically either by motion detector or when it gets dark out, it has a sensor, it has an action, and it has a power source. And other robots just get more complicated and just combine those same basic concepts.
Yeah, so it from that standpoint, we're taking something, building the fundamentals, and then we can advance that from there.
Correct.
And that's something that it doesn't matter what age or background, everybody can learn about something like our Cubelets, right?
Yes. And the best part is they get to play with them. It's a very interactive. In fact, we'd let you play, Brian. You can combine these in any way that you'd like. Go ahead. Remember, you need a sensor, and we have a light sensor, and we have a motion sensor.
All right.
Not sure we have enough light here
Well, then
to
I will
down your light.
I will try that one.
And you got an action that's spinning. They're not going to
And
attach there because you're trying to attach where it's
Oh,
touching. Yep,
there we
you
go. And then,
And that is a light. And if you put it, you'll notice you're spinning.
yep.
And if you put your light on top of there, it should go on. There you
Ah,
go.
look at
So
that.
you'll notice, and of course, if you move your hand away and we don't detect an object, it will go off. So it has to detect an object.
All
So
right.
you have a motion moving night light.
All right. Well, imagine that. I can even build a robot, you know. Well, I really appreciate all that you do for us here. And I think this is the kind of experience we want to make sure we're providing on a daily basis. And we couldn't do this without the help of you and all of our other volunteers. So thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome.
All right. So we have one more volunteer that I'd like to introduce, and that is Shelley. Hi, Shelley. Thanks for
Nice to
coming
meet you.
today. And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like the others, I retired probably more recently, about a year ago. And I decided I really need to get out and was very bored at home. So I looked at the Discovery website and signed up to volunteer.
All right. And so, in terms of your efforts of volunteering here at Discovery World, what area do you work in?
I work in the touch tanks in the aquarium, supervising the touch tanks. And there are three tanks. There's a slipper lobster tank, stingrays, and sturgeon. So the kids and all the guests can come in and touch the animals, which is great.
Yeah. I think having that firsthand experience
Yeah.
really makes a difference.
And I love working with animals. I have my whole life. So this to me is like a dream volunteer opportunity. It
Well,
really
that's great.
is.
Would you like to show everyone a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you go over to get set up, we can make sure we bring all of our virtual guests over and tell us a little bit about what we have here today.
Okay, this is a slipper lobster. This is one of the tanks that is in our aquarium. A lot of the visitors like it. It's a saltwater tank, so it's warm ocean water, which the kids are thrilled with. It's like bath water for them, and they really enjoy being with the lobsters. Um, what I like about it is kids interacting with the kids is it's really an amazing thing to witness. They're so open and honest and observant. Um, they just get so excited because it is scary reaching in and touching essentially a wild animal. It is kind of scary. So once they get up the courage to do that, it's just amazing to see the transformation. They'll jump up and down and yell, I touched it, I touched it. Oh, and they run around and they tell their teachers and their parents, I touched it. And it just really builds their confidence and it's fun for us. And kids are also really, really, really observant and smart. They're smarter than we give them credit. Like, I mean, an example is the slipper lobster. You say, a lobster, boring. But they will go and they will look. There are 5 of them in the tank. They like camouflaging with the rocks. They will look and wait and pick out every one of the 5. And we had one kid, a little kid, he was probably in 3rd grade, and he said to me, that one's name is Santa. I was like, why is his name Santa? Why are you naming it? Because he's redder than the others. So he said it's like he's wearing a red jacket, and I had never noticed that before.
Yeah.
So the kids are, I mean, they're fabulous. They ask good questions. They're enthusiastic. They're very loud, but it's a happy loud.
Yep.
You
I
know,
call
they're
that the
enjoying
sound
it.
of learning.
Exactly. They
Discovery
have a
World.
wall down there, so it's great. I really like it.
So you'd mentioned that you'd looked at other places for volunteer. What was it about Discovery World that made you choose to come and be a volunteer here with us?
I think a lot of it was the animals, but since I've started here, what I really like is the interaction with the kids, which I was not expecting that would be that fun. And also the employees here at Discovery World are incredible. Um, Janine, who is in charge of the volunteers, is so professional and so supportive and so organized. The aquarists are amazing. They're like encyclopedias of knowledge and they're really patient at answering questions. The educators that take the kids through are unbelievable. They'll have 20 or 30, rambunctious 3rd graders. They keep them all in line and they keep them engaged, which is not an easy job. And they do such good work. I mean, it's really a pleasure coming in every time.
Oh, that's great to hear. We have a really great staff, and I
Yes, we
think
do.
the interactions between our staff and our volunteers, it's part of what makes everything work
Oh,
on a
yeah.
daily basis.
Definitely.
Do you get to learn something every time you come
I
down here?
do every time. And the other nice thing about Discovery World is, you know, companies and organizations, they always talk about innovation, but I think Discovery World really walks the walk. They're not just talking the talk. I mean, every few months there's something new, there's something exciting. I mean, the trains, that was new this year, I think. We're getting sharks in one of the touch tanks. There are new exhibits all over the place. It's like every time you come in, there's something new.
Yeah. Well,
Something to
that's something that we're aiming for. And so
Yeah.
for all of our guests that are out there watching, the idea that there should always be something new at Discovery World, that's something that we work real hard
And the special
to make
events are
that
great too.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
publicized well, you know. My son was like, he's older now, but he's like, oh, I want to come to the Gross Out event. So, you know, there's just really interesting things coming up. So,
Well, thank you for all that you do and for all of the support that you and our volunteers provide Discovery World.
thank
So
you. It's
thank
so
you.
much fun.
All right. So today we heard a little bit about the various kinds of things that some of our volunteers do. And as I mentioned, we couldn't bring Discovery World to life on any given day without the support of our volunteers. And so I would encourage, I know many of you at home, if you have questions, please submit those questions to us and we'll take those. And those might be things, if they're questions for our volunteers, if they're questions for me, we'd be happy to field any of those at this point in time. All right, so it looks like we have a first question, and that is, how do I sign up to become a volunteer? I think that's a good question. So in fact, I'll invite all of our volunteers to come and join me for our question and answer session. So how do you sign up to become a volunteer? Well, you can go online to our website, and we'll put the link in the chat. But you can go and complete a volunteer application, and then Janine, our volunteer coordinator, will reach out to you with the next steps and take you through that process. But that would be the best way to first start the process of becoming a volunteer. When you became a volunteer, was that an easy process to get on board and join
Yes.
the organization and get
Very
involved
easy.
right away?
Super fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super fast, and I'd also say Janine gives you an incredible tour that you won't get by just visiting
Yes.
Discovery World on that volunteer
It's worth
orientation.
signing up just for the tour.
Just for the tour. All right, so all of you out there, if you want the special tour, sign up to be a volunteer. Another question we have is, can anyone volunteer or are there age restrictions? Okay, so if you're over 14, you can become a volunteer and play many of the different roles on your own. But if your age is 10 to 14, you can volunteer as long as you sign up with a registered adult. So this might be a parent and child, a grandparent and child, parent and caregiver. There might be that opportunity where we can promote some intergenerational learning as well. There are certain roles here that do have specific requirements. They might require certifications, and a lot of those things are about safety for our volunteers, for our staff, for our guests. But as you would explore what those opportunities are, we can make sure that if there are specific requirements that we let you know what those are. What does the time commitment look like? Well, I guess let me pose that to any of you. How much time do you put in as a volunteer at Discovery World?
As much time as you want.
As much time as you want. So sometimes that might be a short special occasion, but sometimes you might commit to a long-term project. How often do you come in?
I come in 2 to 3 days a month, and the shifts are usually around 3.5 hours.
Okay.
And you can also volunteer for special events. I mean, there are special STEM events, and you can do that on top of it if you want, or just do STEM.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the time commitment can be very flexible. It might be a one-time opportunity. It might be an ongoing opportunity. We try to make sure that we can fit your schedule into our schedule, and we try to accommodate as best we can everyone's interests and needs. Well, here's another one that I'm going to pose back to the group. What will I get out of volunteering at Discovery World? What do you get out of volunteering? Steve?
Kids, it's working
Kids.
with the kids. It's
Kids.
seeing the smiles and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
And let's
Okay.
not forget about those parents. I mean, I can tell you playing with Cubelets that periodically, not everybody who comes in here is always coming with kids. And I can tell you, I've had some wonderful conversations with some engineers who get really intrigued and will stay here for about 20 minutes playing with those Cubelets.
Okay. But in both of those cases, you're talking about adults, you're talking about children, but the idea of interacting with the guests, it sounds like that is a component for all of you, is that's part of what you get out of it, is what comes from those interactions. Yeah, and I think that's what Discovery World is all about. All the things that we can do to interact with our audiences. Um, on the days like today where we're not open, there are things that are happening, but it doesn't feel the same as when it's filled and it's a busy day and there's lots of activity. And those are the days that I look forward to the most too. So let's see, do we have any additional questions? Let's see. Well, I guess one thing I'll go back to something that came up earlier. Many of you talked about some of your own personal backgrounds. Do you feel like you get to tap into any of your prior professional experience and bring that to being a volunteer? Or do you like this because it is a complete change of pace and you're doing something totally different?
I like it because I keep reigniting the old skills that I've learned throughout my career
Okay.
and maybe adding more to it. So also being a volunteer, it's a good learning experience as a volunteer too. Keep the mind sharp.
Okay.
I was going to say, to me, it certainly draws back. I mean, I did not work with the same age group when I was doing college teaching, but it certainly has elements of it. And to me, what makes it fun is that you want the experience to be more than just playing, but also to actually see and make those connections to the world around them. And that doesn't always happen without a little bit of prodding and a little bit of interaction.
Yeah. But that aha moment,
Mhm.
that's part of what you aim for, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you don't have to have a technical background to work here. I think the best skills are people skills. When you can, like he was saying, interact with people, get them comfortable playing around with things. I mean, that's the real skill. You don't have to be a nuclear engineer.
Yeah, you don't have to be the expert in everything that we
yeah.
explore here. In fact, I think one of the things that I love about Discovery World is you can learn right along with the guests.
Yes.
And there might be things that you are an expert in, but there's also the opportunity to learn something new every single day. And that's a big part of what we aim for. Well, I guess I'll put out one last call for questions. Do we have any more questions online? All right, well, it looks like that may have been our last question. So I guess, first of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today and for all that you do on a daily basis with Discovery World. I would also like to thank all of you at home for watching and participating with us. I would encourage you to come down to Discovery World, check out all the things we're doing, look around for those volunteers and ask them about their experiences. If you are interested in becoming a volunteer, please go to our website. We posted in the chat feature where you can find that link. But if you go to discoveryworld.org and do a quick search there for volunteers, you'll immediately find how best to apply and become part of the team here. So again, thank you all for participating. Thank you for all of your support. And we will see you next time down here at Discovery World. Have a great day, everybody.